Hey guys, what do you say? Gannon, JGA59 here, coming at you with another video. And yeah, there are a few things I'd like to share with you today. And the first thing that we're looking at is what I think is one of the most stunning exhibit cards I've ever seen. It's of Bob Meusel of the New York Yankees. It's from 1925. And of course, Meusel played for the Yankees from 1920 through 1929 and was part of that great outfield that featured himself along with Babe Ruth and Earl Combs. Combs played center for the Yankees, and Ruth, as we know, was primarily a right fielder, but actually Meusel and Ruth would switch off depending on, excuse me, what field the Yankees were playing on. For instance, Ruth would play right at Yankee Stadium, while Ruth would go over to left field and Meusel to right at Fenway Park, where right field is notoriously gets very difficult in the late afternoon with the sun. He was a great outfielder. He had a great throwing arm that's actually compared to guys like Clemente and Carl Furillo. And he was. I have a few notes here. He was. He had laser beam accuracy. He could throw to any base. Usually his throws were caught on the fly rather than on one bounce. He was a very quiet type of guy, relaxed, known for being kind of nonchalant. Fans sometimes took his kind of effortless play for loafing, but Miller Huggins, his manager, knew that that was not the case. Meusel stayed with the Yanks till 1929, and he retired after playing one more season with the Cincinnati Reds in 1930. And he had a lifetime batting average of 309, and he had 1,693 hits. Maybe borderline Hall of Famer, or many people think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He also had an older brother named Emil who played with the Giants, and they famously faced off against each other in the World Series for 3 years in a row. What was that? I think it was 1921, 22, and 23. And from what I read, they lived in the same building, and they would talk about the game afterward with the winner, sort of lording it over the guy who lost that day. And anyway, he was also a very good outfielder, Emil Meusel. So here you see the 1925 exhibit card of Bob Meusel. And when I saw this, I just had to have it. It took me a while to get one. I, put in a search on eBay, and I waited a while. And when it came up, I wrestled with it because it cost a little bit. But I had to have this one. Something else. Bob Meusel. Next, I'd like to feature the Yankee pitcher Fritz Peterson, who was part of my childhood growing up. He, along with Mel Stottlemyre, were the strongest pitchers on the team the years I followed them. And I don't have here his 1967 and 69 card, which are the same photo. But those cards are very similar to the 1970, which you see here is autographed. I'll show you that up close in a second. And the 72, in that, his left arm is extended and he's leaning forward as though he just threw the ball. And when I look at those photos, I sometimes wonder if maybe Whitey Ford got to him. Because those of you who know your Whitey Ford cards know that Whitey Ford, had his picture taken in that pose many, many times. So I was wondering if either Whitey said, "Hey, this is what you got to do, kid," or if Fritz decided to pay tribute to Whitey by doing it on his own. Of course, not every card that he made was like that, but you see here a couple examples of him doing the same thing that basically Whitey did. On the left, you have his 1968 card. That was the first card I collected of him. That's when I first started collecting. And next to that, you see an autographed 1970 card. I bought this card from the famous collector Gar Miller. And yeah, that's a nice autograph there. Love this card. The 1971 of Fritz that's an amazing card, isn't it? Look at that, for crying out loud. 1971, of course, was the first year Topps started using action photos, and they really had some nice ones in that set. I know some collectors out there who make it a point, like, to collect the action photos alone, like, make that a project to collect, and that's a great idea. There's so many great action photos from that set. And then on the right, you see his 1972 Topps. And very quickly, I do have here his in-action card. Okay, whoa, all the cards go tumbling down. I'll take the 68 out for a second. And that's his 72 in-action card. So, yeah, one little personal anecdote about Fritz. In 1970, Yankees competed in 1970. They won over 90 games that year. And the only reason they didn't win their division was because of the Baltimore Orioles, who were unstoppable during those years. And Fritz Peterson won 20 games that year. That was his only 20-game season. And I actually, along with my mom and my sister, we went to the old Yankee Stadium. It was the last day of the season, and it was Fan Appreciation Day. And Fritz Peterson started the game and was going for his 20th win, and we watched him get his 20th victory that day. So I think that I should have looked it up before. I think it was September 30th, 1970. But I remember we were sitting kind of back on the first base side between home plate and first base. And, yeah, a big cheer went up when the Yanks won that game, He was also an all-star that year, Fritz Peterson. And, yeah, that was his best season, 1970. So just thought I'd share those with you. The next thing I'd like to share with you is this box. This particular Bazooka bubblegum box was issued from 1969 through 1970. And I remember we used to go to King Cullen, and it's a miracle I have any teeth. I went through so many boxes of this gum. You get 25 pieces for 25 cents, 25 1-cent pieces. And as we all know, Bazooka issued so many great cards on their boxes. The first Bazooka cards I ever saw were on the 68 boxes. And I cut some of those out, but God only knows where they are today. And what was great about the boxes issued during this year was on the back, just to give you an idea of the box, on the side you see players that were issued, I believe, during the 1963. They were issued in the 1963 all-time great set that Bazooka had, and they reconfigured these to fit on the side of the boxes, on the sides of the boxes. So you get Chrissy Mathewson, Grover Cleveland Alexander, and Chief Bender, and Cy Young. And on the back of the boxes, they would feature a great, baseball story different things. Like I remember I had one that featured Lou Gehrig hitting his 4 home runs in one game. There's another one where it talks about Babe Ruth hitting his shot in the World Series against the Cubs in 1932. And this one goes into Tony Lazzeri's, the great Yankee second baseman, Tony Lazzeri's 11 RBI game. He had 2 grand slams and another homer and a triple. And let me read the thing. It says, all right, I'm going to hold this steady. Tony Lazzeri hammered his way into the record books today with a pair of home runs with the bases loaded and drove in 11 runs as the Yankees crushed the A's 25-2. The 32-year-old veteran hit another homer with nobody on base and a triple with 2 men on to set an American League record for runs batted in for one game. He became the first major leaguer to hit 2 grand slam homers in a game. Once before, June 8, 1927, he walloped 3 homers in a game. Yeah, Tony Lazzeri was like maybe the key man in the Yankees infield for many years. He started playing for the Yankees in 1926, and he teamed up with Mark Koenig at short. And, of course, he had Lou Gehrig back then and Red Rolfe on third base. Tony Lazzeri was born in 1903. He grew up in a tough neighborhood in San Francisco. Apparently, he was expelled from school at the age of 15, and he was very happy about it. And he decided to go to work with his father at an ironworks nearby. And he developed a lot of his strength working there, developing his shoulders and his forearms. Played a little semi-professional ball, and he also had dreams of becoming a boxer and trained for that as well. But then he really started playing some minor league ball. And, one year, I forget which year it was, but he was playing for the Salt Lake City Bees, and they were in the Pacific Coast League, and he had 355 and hit 60 home runs. He was the first guy ever to hit 60 home runs. However, he did that in 197 games. Now, one little caveat about playing in Salt Lake City, they were playing at a high altitude and the air was thinner, and there were a lot of scouts looking at him, and they were a little reluctant to sign off on him because there had been other players who had performed very well in at a high altitude, but hadn't worked out when they got to the majors. So they were concerned, a little bit about Lazzeri there. And the other big reason they were concerned about him, he was actually an epileptic. And, the Reds and the Cubs, they all, came to look at him. But the Yankees found out that he had never had any episodes on the ball field, and they decided to take a chance with him. And, as they say, the rest is history. He never did have an epileptic episode on the ball field. And, again, he was just a major part of the Yankees' 1920s and 30s teams. Of course, he was part of the famous Murderers Row team of 1927, and he was also the first great ball player of Italian heritage. And apparently the fans would all come to Yankee Stadium and say, "Push him up, Tony, push him up." And, Tony Lazzeri himself said the first time anybody said that was actually when he was playing in Salt Lake City. It was just some Italian fans' way of trying to, assimilate and become, part of the game and the crowd. And he developed, he came up with a unique way of, saying, get a hit or hit a home run, or, I think that was really very interesting. Sadly, Lazzeri died at the age of 42. His wife found him collapsed. Apparently, he had a heart attack. So that was very unfortunate. But anyway, I love these boxes. I may try to get a couple more. I'd love to get the Lou Gehrig again because I know I had that as a kid. And but this time I won't chew any bubble gum. I'd like to end the video today, and I just want to show you a couple of obviously non-playing day cards of the great Josh Gibson. These are what are called Monarch Corona cards. I just came across them on eBay. This one particular seller seemed to he has quite a bit of them, of all different players. And I figure that, hey, we're baseball card collectors, and, we got to have something of Josh Gibson. I mean, I think there's a playing days card of Gibson. There might be one, but I'm sure I'll never own one, probably given the price. So we have to have something by guys like Josh Gibson, as well as the other great Negro League ball players who were never given the chance to play in the majors. I love this one on the left, which shows Josh Gibson playing for the Homestead Grays. The front is designed like a 1964 Topps. And the back, is kind of, like a 1968 Topps. I really love what they do there. And this one, of course, is in the design of a 1960 Topps. And the back is very different, a little bit like 1960, but, of course, not really. So, again, I'm not big on collecting modern day cards of old ball players. Just not interested, but with something like this, and there are other cards of his, but I just wanted to get a couple of that I really liked, and I'm trying to do that with a few ball players. I've still got to do more looking around, but I'd like to get cards of guys like Oscar Charleston, who else? Ray Dandridge, all the great players. I used to have a set. What was that by? Anyway, it was a complete set of cards of the Negro League players, but I unfortunately don't have that now. At any rate, I'm rambling. I hope you liked today's video, and I'm going to try to do one a week. And please feel free to comment. And I love getting comments, and I love answering comments. And if you leave one, you can be sure I'll definitely get back to you. Okay, so for now, I'll say so long, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.